All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about writing summaries. These are summaries that you can apply to summarizing a chapter or a journal or a magazine article or even an entire novel. Key pieces that you need to fold into your summary. The very first thing that you need to include is an introductory statement. In that introductory statement, identify the type of work. Is it a chapter? Is it a novel? Or is it an article? Okay. Follow that with the author and the main idea of that piece that you're summarizing. Once there, I need you to identify the setting, and that includes time and place. 1900 New York City is a lot different than 2000 New York City, which is a lot different than even 2002 New York City. Identify the main characters. There are a lot of peripheral characters that could be folded in that are interesting and may drive the plot, but you want to identify the main characters that really move that particular section that you're summarizing, and then move on to recounting the important details. So, for example, like when you're looking to summarize the main idea of a text, you want to capture an overarching piece. So, if you think back to reading To Kill a Mockingbird, you could summarize the main ideas within that book as being inequality and morality. A lot of other ideas associated with that book, but if you wanted a big umbrella, you could start with those two. For example, you could also then move on to a play like Romeo and Juliet. Any expert will tell you that the play is about love, but I don't think you need to limit yourself there. You could also talk about it that it could be love and hate if you're looking at the Capulets and Montagues. You could also talk about loyalty, how characters are loyal to their friends and their families. But in either case, those three words could capture the entire main idea of the whole play. Finally, if you're just looking at a small section of something like a chapter, like say the first chapter of John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, you could look at the start of that chapter as talking about solitude and separation and how those characters will introduce the story through solitude and separation. Now, so you got your main idea. Now you got to start moving through some of the smaller ideas that will establish the story, like setting time and place. So we've got the courtroom scene in To Kill a Mockingbird, or the Great Depression in To Kill a Mockingbird, or even uh, Of Mice and Men that'll work as well too. And then there's also Fair Verona to establish a time period and the physical geographical location. All right, so you got a main idea, you got a location, you got a time period, and you got characters to drive this thing. So make sure that you're naming these characters by name instead of using pronouns like he or she or they. Using those names will keep it solid and concrete and keep your writing super specific. Characters, place, main idea. Well, got to summarize what happens. Just start going through the basic storyline. And probably the easiest way to do it is to do it chronologically, do it in the order that they happened. When it comes to your writing style, keep your writing objectives. Your personal opinion, the I and we, or those personal pronouns that show your opinion, let's leave them out. Keep writing the third person objective voice. Include only the major details that affect the plot. Every interesting thing that pops up in To Kill a Mockingbird doesn't necessarily need to be captured in a summary. And finally, the details that you give have to support the main idea or the topic sentence of the paragraph that it belongs in. Finally, let's start talking about length. Short's going to be the key to this. When it comes to newspaper and encyclopedia articles, you want to go 1 or 2 paragraphs. Magazine and journal articles, a little bit longer, tend to be more detailed, 2 to 3 paragraphs. A chapter, well, it's going to depend on the length of the chapter, but 2 to 4 paragraphs is not a bad range. And a novel, an entire novel, you may want to start thinking 2 to 4 pages, depending on the length of the novel and the detail that you're going into. A 2-paragraph summary is going to be pretty thin. Anyway, that's the short and skinny of it. I look forward to reading what you have to offer.